Welcome to the Route to Success, where you learn how leaders build resilience, take control of their story, and turn adversity into impact. Today's episode is grounded in one question. What do you do when life tells you to stop? Our guest, Jackle, was diagnosed with a chronic illness in 2014 and told she would never work again. That moment could have ended everything. Instead, it became the starting point. Using her background in social work and policy, she studied resilience, not casually, deeply. She built practical tools like the inner best friend and inner champion to move forward step by step, even when it was hard. Those same tools helped her rise into national leadership roles in political outreach. And today, she is the founder of Democrashe, a program operating in 42 states that equips high school girls with both resilience skills and civic engagement tools grounded in one belief: leadership is their right. This conversation is about resilience, identity, and how you build strength before you need it. Sarah, welcome to the show. I am intimidated to talk to you, and I would be even more intimidated if I hadn't already met you and knew how wonderful and kind you are. What a story.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for having me. I'm so grateful for this space that you build.
I'm so excited. Okay, let's start with your story. You were told you'd never work again after your diagnosis. What was that moment like, and what did it take to begin moving forward again?
So that moment, and I don't think this will be a surprise, was sort of catastrophic. I had worked very hard to become a social worker. I cared deeply about our homeless community dealing with mental illness and saw myself, my whole career, as a calling to work with that population. And to be told that I would never work again, that the autoimmune disease I had was so severe and the pain and the fatigue were so overwhelming that I would go on disability for life, was like the bottom dropped out of my whole world, right? And everything I thought I understood or knew or believed in was gone. And I 100% did live on a couch with my puppy dog, Max, who was right there by my side, for about 2.5 years, which is where I realized I might not be able to control what was happening to me, but I could try to control how I showed up in this moment. And that was where I started building off the master's in social work I already had to get really interested in the brain and resiliency, how people persevered through deeply adversarial times. How had people done that? And how could I learn to show up as the Sarah I wanted to be, even if it was forever on a couch?
I love that. I love your story. I would say, your grit and tenacity. And that you took something that was catastrophic and have turned it into something so beautiful. I will be honest, on my really bad days, I have a couple illnesses and challenges I deal with. I'm now going to look to you and think, if Sarah did it, I can do it. So you're going to feel that positive energy coming from me because you have inspired me to get up even on my hard days. So thank you. And thank you for what you shared. Okay, so enough of my emotions. You didn't just cope. You studied resilience and built tools. What are the most important skills you developed during that time that changed your trajectory? And you also said you studied the brain, so it changed your brain. I imagine you rewired it.
Yeah. So one of the things I found as I looked more deeply into adversity is the human brain has a couple different mechanisms for perceiving the world. So the front of our brain is our prefrontal cortex, which is our thoughts, our rational thinking, and which responds to rational arguments and rational thinking. Toward the back of the brain is the amygdala, which is connected to the whole limbic system and nervous system. But for simplicity's sake, we'll just talk about the amygdala. And it responds in a fight, flight, freeze sort of way. It developed back in cave person days to be actively scanning for threats. And it wants to err on the side of perceiving threats to keep you alive. That is our cave person times. So I realized oftentimes when we're facing adversity, we try to communicate with ourselves with the prefrontal cortex. So we say, you can do it. Let's get on. But the part of the brain that is in free fall is the amygdala. She is in fight or flight or freeze or fawn. And she has a different language. So when we go through true adversity, the amygdala gets triggered. And her language is what we call somatic, yoga, or grounding, where you're noticing yourself making physical contact. It is language of compassion. The amygdala hears tone faster than it hears words. So I started studying the self-compassion work of Dr. Kristin Neff and really got into all the different ways that we communicate with our amygdala, acceptance commitment therapy, and thank you brain. All of this is to say, I took all these years to look into this and study it to come up with a few hacks. So grounding with Mother Earth. Sometimes when we're going out of our body, right, we're starting to flood, we're starting to go into overwhelm, noticing your body making physical contact with a hard surface, and that surface being Mother Earth, who's beneath your feet at all times and you never have to ask. She is always there. Helps pull you from the amygdala back into your body and settle and ground you so you can think with your prefrontal cortex. And the other hacks that I developed were an inner best friend and an inner champion. So there's a lot of self-compassion research and meditations, but a really quick way to find that voice is to say, what would my inner best friend say? My inner best friends back in 2014 to 2016 were Barack Obama and my puppy dog, Max. And so asking myself when I felt overwhelmed and I can't do it anymore, what would Barack Obama say to me? And he is hopeful, and he is joyful, and he is positive, and he believes that you can do it. And that voice would make me try. And so it was practicing these hacks that I had developed from the research that actually helped me get back up when I really wanted to after the election of 2016.
I love that. I recently well, I guess it's been about 30 days. So I don't know if you would say that's still recently, have started adding meditation into my days. I end every day, my dogs and I meditate together, and it's been amazing for the three of us. And then I love how you brought in Mother Earth and grounding, and you explained something to me. In the afternoons, I'll get restless or kind of cagey, and I want to go out and garden. And so I will. And there's something about digging in the dirt, being that little kid again, planting seeds, watching them grow, getting hot and sweaty. That just clears my mind and makes me so joyful. And I'm like, okay, now I can go back in and face the day. And you just explained that.
It also pulls you into the present moment because you're asking yourself to notice the hands in the dirt, to notice the seed, to notice things growing. And that pulls you back into your body and out of the anxious amygdala because the physical nature of that asks you to come back to the present moment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so easy, isn't it? You just go outside just for a minute and you'll be okay. I love that. So you talk about inner best friend and inner champion. And I'm going to be the first to say, Sarah, it is so hard for me because I think I'm my own worst inner critic. My inner critic is so bad that my 22-year-old daughter comments about it. That's how bad it is, right? So you talked about how Barack Obama was like your inner best friend and your dog Max, and the joy and the hope that you could pull. But how did those tools really work? And especially for somebody like me, who I want a best friend, desperately want what you have, but inside that critic just takes over of you're a loser. You made another bad decision. You did that wrong again. You really need to think this over. How do you make that shift and start using those today?
100%. So the first thing is to realize, I don't know about you, but I experience my inner critic as very assaultive. It is an assaultive voice. And one of the first things to realize is that inner critic is again from our evolutionary brain that tried to keep us alive by pointing out all the things that could go wrong. And it actually is trying to help. It's doing a terrible job, but it actually loves you and wants to help you. And the first thing to realize is that inner critic thinks it's helping. And once we can notice and name that, that's where I mentioned briefly a skill called thank you brain from acceptance commitment therapy. And that's where we say, Thank you, evolutionary brain. I realize you're trying to help by pointing all the things that could go wrong because you think you're keeping me alive. And I value you and I hear you. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to check in with the voice of my inner best friend, which is a figure either real or imagined or fictional who speaks to you with a kind, encouraging, supportive voice. It can be someone real in your life who serves that purpose, or it can be like a Michelle Obama. The Obamas are all over my inner best friend. But like,
they're amazing.
Or a Wonder Woman or a Black Panther. It could be any figure that Taylor Swift is a big one for high school girls, right? Who speaks to you in that way. So you are correct that just trying to yank yourself over into an inner best friend, you're fighting the inner critic and it doesn't work very well. But acknowledging and validating the inner critic as trying to be helpful and someone who truly has your best interest at heart, but is running off of scripts from millions of years ago, right? These are not as helpful in 2026. Gives you the space to then say, thank you for that. I'm going to go check in. The inner best friend is encouraging and supportive. An inner champion. My inner champions are Stacey Abrams, Megan Rapinoe, Shonda Rhimes, who's an amazing TV writer, Jeannette Rankin, who was the first congresswoman elected in 1916, who encourage you to be brave and step out of your comfort zone when you are in that moment where you're like, I want to stand up for my values, but this feels scary. That is that figure that you call on to encourage you to be brave. So inner best friend, supportive, loving, inner champion, still supportive and loving, and encouraging to be brave.
I love that. These are tools that are so easy to use. Okay. Okay. So you've given me lots to think about. I love the conversations. I always feel like I get more from these podcasts than anybody else. And thank you for that. Because it's absolutely been amazing. All right. So let's talk about what you do during the day, which I am fascinated about. And I just want to shout what you do from the rooftops. Because like I said, I do have a 22-year-old daughter, and we could talk about what high school is like for her and where I had to pick up, but we're keeping this positive. So you went from rebuilding, giving us these amazing tools, to leading national political outreach efforts. What role did resilience play? Wait, I'm not reading well. Okay. What role did these resilience tools play in your ability to step into leadership? And then, okay, the next question is all about democracy. Sarah, forgive me. I am so excited about what you do that I am jumping ahead. So let's just talk about your resilience tools and your ability to step into national leadership, which I am in awe of you for doing. And then we'll talk about your amazing program. So forgive me for getting so excited.
Oh, please. I love excitement. I am very excited about these tools, and I'm a passionate advocate because they are battle tested. So 100%, I thought I was living the rest of my life on the couch and studying these tools in kind of an academic way to see how I could be my best self in a tough time. After the election of 2016, I felt very strongly that I wanted to get up. But it's one thing to think you want to get up, and it's another thing to do it. I mean, the fatigue and pain were very real. So a couple things. I would learn to break it down into very small steps. And I would first say, I'm just going to get in the car. If I said, I'm going to go register voters, I would get overwhelmed. But I would say, I'm just going to get in the car. And before I do that, I'm going to ground with Mother Earth. I'm going to check in with my inner best friend. And then we're going to get in the car. And we can get out if we want. And we're just going to drive there. And we can drive home. And we'll register one voter. And I incorporated grounding and inner best friend and some of the other tools into every step of this process, right? So I was using it before I got in the car, before I got out of the car, before I talked to somebody about voting. And I ended up doing it so many times. Thinking the first time I did it, I would get up once and sit back down. I did it so many times that I ended up becoming the national outreach director for a voter registration group called Field Team 6. And I became the Get Out the Vote director for the California National Organization for Women. And in both of those roles, when they were offered to me, my first instinct was no. because I had been told, you will never work again. You can't do this. This is physically impossible. And I had to ground with Mother Earth and check in with my inner best friend and learn to shift the no's to yeses. And it was a process, right? I would think no, I would ground, I would check with my inner best friend, and I would say the word yes. And I ended up doing things like emceeing openings of things, which 100% I don't think I can do. But I was training myself to say yes, to get to yes. But I also knew you can't just tell people, overcome things. The pain and fatigue is very real. The pain and fatigue is real as I am sitting here talking to you. And it is important to develop these tools inside that you can rely on that are ways to support yourself. So you're protecting your inner life as you are encouraging yourself to be bold and brave and do things in line with your ambition. And I was very, very grateful that I had the time to study the brain, to study the tools, to build off of a master's in social work, because otherwise I think I would have gotten flooded and overwhelmed and not been able to step up so many times.
I love how you say break things down into simple steps. Let's just do one thing at a time. And so my challenges are nowhere close to yours. I have a severe case of asthma, terrible food allergies, and ADHD. And some days those combine into a pretty wicked little, storm. And I also intimidate myself. But I do what you do, where it's like, okay, I just have to do one thing. It's just one step. And I have found over the years that when I can be like, okay, today's a day that's hard to breathe. That sucks, right? But if I just get up and move a little bit, it'll get easier. Okay, my dog gets that. So if I can just take her outside, she can go potty, I can get some sunshine, and I can do a little bit more. And it's so much that just let me just take that first step. And then let me just take it another step. And when you break anything down into those little steps, it's doable, it's manageable. And that's honestly what I teach to people all the time. It's just one step at a time. You don't have to see that big picture. You don't even have to focus on that. There are days, Sarah, I promise you, I will tell you, I have a huge work project. I can't think about the end outcome because if I do, I'm going to sit here and cry. But I can do the first question. Okay, the first question is that, okay, I can do the second question. And just letting people know it's okay to do that and take one step at a time and to cheer yourself on. And I love everything that you're saying because it's so real and it's so doable and you can do it with no money. You can start, you can be completely broken, sitting on the floor crying, how am I going to pay my next bill? And you can literally use your theories and your things to take that first step and then the next step and then the next step. And before you know it, you're just, what I see that it's just rolling in success. I see you just rolling up a mountain in success. That's the visual image. So I hope people are getting how amazing these tools are.
And I just wanted to say one other thing. I love how you express that and what you do in your own life. Research shows that if we celebrate ourselves for taking the steps, we're more likely to take them again. It can be a little awkward to think how do I celebrate myself? One of the things that you can do is when you go out into the yard, it's hard to breathe. You're not going for a walk, but you're going into the yard with your puppy dog. You're getting sunshine. In that moment, saying, what would my inner best friend say about me being strong enough to walk out this door, to stand here with my dog, to get this sunshine? What would she say? Is a great way to celebrate. And what you do is wire more firmly each step into your head and make it easier to take. So it kind of sits on both sides. It's something that can encourage you to go out the door. What would my inner best friend say about taking my dog out into the sunshine? And it's something else after you've done it to wire it firmly into your brain because she will cheerlead you on for being brave enough to take that step.
And if you're like me, and celebrating yourself is really hard, I celebrate my dog. It's going to sound crazy, but I'll look at Selena and I'll be like, Selena, look what we did. We took that step. And she'll get really excited, do her little dance, her little zoomies, and I'll clap her on, right? So if you're like me and you struggle to celebrate yourself, celebrate your dog, they'll celebrate you. And it just creates a nice little circle. That's my workaround. And you can see, everybody, that I struggle, but I like to be vulnerable in these conversations because I don't want to make this about me. This is about Sarah. But even in your vulnerability, you can find ways to celebrate yourself.
And actually, you know what you're doing is one of the most effective ways into compassion. Because again, the research shows, and I just have lived in research, which is why I keep saying research shows, but the research shows it is more easier to bring compassion to you and someone you love than just you yourself. So you are actually being very strategic. You're right in line with the research, which is like if you include a loved one in that compassionate celebration, it's easier to access. When you start getting really good at it, you can just say, what did I do? Well, right. What is the cheerful voice for me? But an easier way in, I'm so glad you brought this up because I want all your listeners to know it is an easier way in. What would my inner best friend say about me and my puppy dog? What would my inner best friend say about me and my daughter? Whatever that is, it's a super easy way in.
It is. And I'll tell you, if you ever need to celebrate, you're having a rough day, always bring a dog in. Dogs will celebrate anything with you and make you happy.
100%. There is no question that some of the most profound inner best friends are dogs and cats
Yes.
But the unconditional love of an animal is the heart of an inner best friend. And as I work in Democrashe, we are online, so we're in these Zoom rooms. But there are so many times that puppy dogs appear on the screen because they are girls' inner best friends. And Branch, who's my puppy dog, appears on my screen because dogs are an inherent part of this work. So 100%.
Yes, I love that. Okay. Let's talk about Democrashe. Please. I hope I saved enough time for this. So you founded Democrashe to teach resilience alongside civics to high school girls. So passionate about that. Why is it critical to teach these skills early before challenges happen? And would you mind also giving us your elevator pitch so we all know exactly what Democrashe does and how we can support you?
Yeah. So it's really important to start in high school because high school is the last time boys and girls think they can run for office equally, which is a proxy for young women's confidence. And the elevator pitch of Democrashe, you've kind of heard with my whole talking about my background, because what I was seeing when I was working in politics was women faced different barriers in civic and elected spaces. One was the imposter syndrome, right? So men are twice as likely to see themselves as candidates, even with the same resume. But the other thing was when they did step up, and we've all seen this, women face very different pushback and they get up to 10 times more harassment and bullying than male candidates. So it occurred to me that if we want to change the pipeline, because in 2026, Congress is only 29% women and 11% women of color. That's it. And if we want to see equality and equity in this, and the full radiant spectrum of women represented, we need to not only teach women that their voice belongs in our democracy and running for office is their birthright. We have to equip them with the brain hack tools to overcome the barriers we know are on this path. Self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and very real pushback, right? Very real pushback. So if we incorporate those in how we train young women in leadership, then we're going to see women set up for success later in life because they can stay on the path and not get knocked off. I would ask your listeners right now if they identify with a bit of overwhelm and exhaustion, and that is amplified 1,000 times for the high school population who are coming up into a world that seems overwhelming and exhausting. And overwhelm and exhaustion is no one's fault. It is just a human body reacting as it should to trauma. But it can make you either go into hyperarousal, where you get stuck ruminating and you can't get out of anxiety, or hypoarousal, where you collapse. And you start hearing things like, I can't talk about politics. I can't think about this. And I don't want these girls to get knocked off their path. So it's not enough just to tell women they can do it. It's not enough just to recruit them. We have to actually give them the psychology skills to stay in the pipeline and protect themselves from the type of pushback we know they're going to face.
I would also venture to say that the skills that you're teaching are going to benefit them in their professional world if they don't choose to go into politics. Because I can speak as a woman. When I worked in the nonprofit sector, breaking the glass ceiling, I received a lot of pushback and a lot of things that were said to me like, how about you write that speech down next time and have a man deliver it? It'll carry more validity. And just saying they're not knowing what to say, right? And so knowing what I experienced, knowing what my daughter has experienced, I feel like what you're equipping women are tools that will guarantee success and the ability to move forward in politics, in leadership, and in life. I feel like you're just giving them such a gift.
Thank you, Sarah. And 100%, we are intervening in high school. So not every single Democrashe is going to run for office. But what I want is women who know they belong in every room, in every area, who feel confident to use their voice and are prepared when they get the pushback we know that they will get. And every single one of those women knows that running for option is an option, is their birthright. And so I feel like, I think we also see policy in so many places. I mean, we've certainly seen policy in arts and in the sciences and in the literary things and in academia. And so it's important to have women who are fluent in civic engagement, civic spaces, how to make change, and also how to resist the kind of barriers they're going to face. Because we need these women at every table where decisions are being made.
Yes. I don't know if you've seen the research from the Rockefeller Foundation. They've released statements and research that shows that if we truly want to end world hunger, women need to be at the table. And the reason that we're not making more progress is because women aren't at that table. And so I can see how what you're doing is going to ensure we get women at the tables that we need them at to end these world crises, which is a form of democracy, which is a form of politics, right? But to end these things, we have to equip our women.
And I think, I'm as excited about our girls who go on to get a PhD in neuroscience and a PhD in public health and are coming in, or some girls are getting masters in diplomacy, want to go into the State Department. There are so many ways that we need women's voices. I mean, if you think about science, right, and how women have been left out of research, I think about how many more women have died in car accidents because the crash test dummies that they tested on were built for men. And they didn't even to build for women. And so many more women have died because of that. What if we had women engineers in that room who said, hey guys, you know who else is a passenger in this car? Maybe women. So I think you need women's voices in absolutely every area.
Exactly. One of the things that excites me the most about your program is that it's peer led. And let me just say, operates in 42 states. That's huge. Woo woo. What have you learned from the young women in your program about leadership, confidence, and stepping into their voice?
I mean, I think one of the things I love most about our program is the peer-led model. And I think our girls go through the program and then have the opportunity to come back and lead it. So girls teaching inner best friend or teaching to call your representative or run Democrashe Congress are high school girls and college girls talking to high school girls. And I think what's so exciting is you can either tell a woman that you believe in her, or you can show her by trusting her and actually giving her a chance to have authority. And our girls run huge workshops, 2 hours workshops, 4-hour workshops. They run the breakout rooms. They run the whole thing and they knock it out of the park. And before the original workshop, I say to the girls, so we prepare the very best that we can. We love these girls with all of our hearts. And then we completely let go of outcome because we can't control how it lands in the room. And then we learn. We prepare, we love, we let go, and we learn. And I also tell them that however this translates through their radiant selves is exactly how it was meant to be taught. Because the Democrashe motto is you can't do it wrong. No matter what you learn, you can't do it wrong. And I think watching girl after girl after girl just knock it out of the park and be such inspiring professional level mentors, professional level facilitators is one of the things that has just made me all in on high school girls, just all in. And I think if you let girls rise to the occasion, they will.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yes. Okay. So in classic me, Sarah mode, I got a little ahead of myself, and we talked about people struggling with inner critic and what they should do if they feel stuck in that cycle. So I would like to change that question if you don't mind. So for people who are listening, if Democrashe is not in their area or their school, how do they go about contacting you and saying, hey, Sarah, we need to partner with you?
Great question, because Democrashe is in their area and school. Because we are an online nonprofit, we are everywhere. The reason we're in 42 states is because girls just have to open their phone or computer and they find a whole supportive community. So 100%, if you go to our website, which is democrashe.org, there is an apply button, and we have a 10-week opportunity that's 2 hours a week, which is kind of the gold standard flagship program. We have 1-day summer intensives that are best of Democrashe, and you learn the main resiliency skills and use your voice. And then we also have for free on our website a self-directed program that absolutely everybody can do right now. If you go to our website, it is up and you could go through at your own pace. And just to clarify, when I say that is free, we actually pay girls a stipend to participate in the 10-week program and in the 1-day program. So I think there are too many unpaid options that are early political pipelines. And that means only people that can afford those can join. I want every ambitious girl who loves and cares about our country to have the opportunity to participate. So we actually pay $15 an hour to the girls to make sure there are no barriers to entry. So the online program is completely free. And then the 2 programs that are live are paid opportunities.
That is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to assume that people that are hearing this, let's say they don't have kids, but would like to invest, there's a donate button on your website.
You are so thoughtful, Sarah. There is a donate button on our website, and we absolutely can't do this work without the amazing donors. One of the things that I have been sharing is for $25 a month, you fully fund the stipend of a 10-week girl.
Wow.
For $50 a month, you fully fund a peer leader who is professionally leading that program and coming back to have a leadership opportunity. And for $100 a month, you fully fund a girl to go through the 10-week program. So those are some ways that amazing humans who believe in these young women and kind of getting these skills to them early have supported our work and made it possible.
So, because I never bring my professional life into the podcast, I will say I've worked in the nonprofit world for 20 years, which is why I had to ask some of those very direct questions. So if you don't mind, I'm going to put my little pitch in. As somebody who's worked in this world for 20 years and understands the challenges of fundraising and donors, and especially working in the political space, when Sarah says $25 a month pays a stipend for a girl to attend for 2 hours, yes, it is $25 for that girl. And yes, it's very important that we instill that in that child, in that young woman. What she is not mentioning that I want to bring up as myself that she does not know I'm going to do is the actual return on investment. And so we would have to do longitudinal studies. We'd have to collect data, but that return on investment, that $25 a month, could very easily turn into a beautiful political career that ends hunger. Could very easily turn into a woman who is the next CEO of a Fortune 500 company who is working to end homelessness. That ROI is so intense and it's so amazing that it's really going to be almost comparing pennies to $100 bills. And that's why it's so important for you to donate. And I hope I said that well. That is just me as a nonprofit person putting that in to show you that what you're investing in is not just young women and their future, it's community development, it's economic development, and it's an investment in ending the true challenges that we are facing as both a country and a world. And that's truly what you're investing in for that money. So I will now take off my professional hat and say, Sarah, I hope you don't mind that I added that.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it, and we'll learn from it.
There's just what you're doing is so, so powerful. And I am very passionate about programs that invest in young women because my father's actually an immigrant, and I was raised by a U.S. born mom, immigrant father, and didn't have access to things. Everything was very scarcity based and fear based. You can't do anything that's going to look bad for college, right? And so when I raised my daughter, it was very differently. And what you're doing is something that I can see the impact that it's making now and is making in the future. And I'm struggling very much to say that. I just hope people can feel the passion of what we're doing and the value that we're giving our children and what we're investing in them. So I'm going to stop talking because Sarah is amazing. And it's Democrashe, very easy to find. And what we can learn here is what we can say is, and this is honestly what this entire podcast is built on, is resilience is not something that you're born with. It's built. I tell people when I talk to them all the time, I think of resiliency as a muscle. And you've got to work that muscle every day. And Sarah gave us incredible ways to build that muscle, to work that muscle. Take one step, take another step, cheer yourself on, develop that inner best friend, inner best champion. And so what I hope you get from this is two things. One, that even the hardest moments can lead to absolutely amazing, amazing futures when you choose to lean into them and take your tools and create something amazing. And I also hope that you heard the hope for our future that Sarah brought into this conversation. Because it can be very hard to not feel very just depressed with what's going on. And Sarah is giving us hope every day. And what she's doing and these girls are giving us hope. So if you enjoyed this conversation, my daughter told me I'm supposed to say this. You live and you learn. Please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. I've never said that before. And please look into Democrashe, and please support the work that Sarah does. Sarah, thank you so much for being such an amazing and informative guest.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.